And what we're going to do today is make a bowl, or rough out a bowl. We're going to get it from the stage of a log. Go ahead, it turned on.
Yeah, okay, there you go.
We're going to go from this to something like this today. And then next week we'll go from this to something like this.
Hey, Dan,
Yes.
before you start chucking that up, why did you have that wrapped up in brown paper?
I didn't want it to dry out anymore than what was already dried out, to control the humidity on it so it wouldn't get drier and dustier.
When was that cut?
Well, the tree itself was cut down probably last summer, and it was about a 5-foot log, and I've been looking for the wettest wood I had, and this turned out to be the wettest I had. It's still fairly dry, but I cut this up into pieces about 3 days ago, and then I wrapped them up in paper.
I can't get this to start recording.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yep.
How long after a tree falls in your yard can you use the wood?
Immediately. The better, the sooner the better.
I like the way it
'Cause-
is, 10 minutes.
Yeah, because once it hits the ground, it starts cracking. Yeah, so the soon.
What is that there?
I believe it's Bradford pear. This came out of, I knew the yard this came out of from, and she had some trees taken down, some sweet gum and Bradford pear. I think this is Bradford pear. You all set? Okay. Well, first I'll start off with, I do not consider myself an accomplished bowl turner. My belief is if you want to learn how to do something, you prepare to give a demo, and you give a demo on it. So that's my way to force myself to learn how to do something. And then so what I'm going to do today is share with you the stuff that I've learned about making bowls. And I've used references for the information that I'm going to show you today. I've got several books, Turning Bowls with Richard Graffin, which is available out here, Turning Greenwood with Michael O'Donnell, which is out here, and they both go into from this, taking it from this stage to finish turning on those two books. Then there's two other books that goes into design. It's Art of Turn Bowls with Richard Graffin, and Wood Turning Design by Derek Hayes. And I believe all four of those books are available out here. And then I'm really a big fan of videos. I can go watch a presentation, but a month or two down the road, you say, oh, how did he do that now? Well, with a DVD, you just go get it off the shelf and you watch it again. So I really like DVDs. The DVDs that I've used or viewed is Back to Basics and Turn It On Volume 1 with Jimmy Clues. Bowl Turning with Richard Raffin, Bowl Basics the Easy Way with Lyle Jamieson, 2 Ways to Make a Bowl with Stuart Batty and Mike Mahoney, Bowl Turning with Del Stubbs, and Sharpening Demystified by Kurt DeHeer. The Richard Raffin Bowl Turning book and the Bowl Turning with Del Stubbs are both out here on the rack, and they're both real good DVDs. And then, of course, I belong to several wood turning clubs, so I watched numerous demonstrations. Mike and Ron and Jack, and then I've also had some personal hands-on training with Jack and Mark Chalet and Frank Bowers, and also got some tips from Wes Jones. So I'll take the bits and pieces I like from all those different people, and that's what I'm going to show you what I've decide that I like to do at this point in time. Not to say I might not do something differently a month from now. So it's all evolving as I go along. My technique that I'm using. And then, like I say, today I'm going to go through. We're going to go from a rough to from a log to a rough turned bowl. And see. Now, if you don't already own, what I'm going to show you, the first part here is taking a log and turning it into a bowl blank. Well, if you don't already have a chainsaw and a bandsaw, it's a lot cheaper just to buy the bowl blank out here in the store. So I have a chainsaw, I have all the recommended safety equipment, I got a bandsaw, and I get lots of free wood. You can get this wood any place. You go to your woodworking clubs, wood turning clubs, everybody's got some wood they want to get rid of. So you can always get plenty of free wood.
Dan, you've got something there
that gives you an excuse to buy the tool.
Well, that's true.
It's not about cost, it's about collecting the tool.
I remember the story was up in Baltimore, and this is back during the first energy crisis where people were starting to burn wood. So this guy, he thought, well, how much he could save by burning wood. So he bought a wood burning stove. Well, then he said he had to get some wood. Well, he started buying wood. We said, well, if I buy a truck, I could haul the wood home and I wouldn't have to buy it. Well, then he said, well, I got to buy a chainsaw. Well, after he bought all this chainsaw, then he dropped a tree on his truck. So in the long run, it'd been cheaper just to pay for the for the energy. But it's a hobby. You know, like Mike says, you buy the tools and it's a hobby. You know, it keeps me off the street. I could be out on the golf course spending how much green fees cost nowadays? You know, $30-40 for 2 hours worth of enjoyment. I can buy tools and I can enjoy those tools for years and not have to. You know, there's always going to be a new tool that you can spend money on, though. But I just really enjoy it. You know, I go down. I go down into I call it my workshop studio. My wife calls it the dungeon. But I can go down there and just spend the whole day down there and just have a good time.
Man cave.
Right. That's another one. Man cave. Yeah, that's it. Okay. Let's see. Now the wood that I normally get, it's free. Like Wes Jones, he turns real big stuff, and he wouldn't even consider something like this, or Jack probably wouldn't consider something like this. But this is the size of wood, maybe a little bit larger, that you can really get free. So consequently, a lot of my bowls are on the smaller side, to get the most out of the wood. This is going to work. We got a log. Then we got the pith, and I'll cut the thing until like that, and then I'll make my bowl to get the most out of that log. I'll make the bowl in that shape there, where you got the rim of the bowl is toward the pith. Now you could do it. You could do the same thing. You could do it this way, but you'd end up with a smaller bowl. Now you could do a natural edge bowl and get a bigger bowl, but most of the stuff I do is utility type stuff that actually be used for a candy dish or Richard Raffins uses wooden bowls for cereal bowls. So I make bowls that's more in a utility fashion, and not the artsy stuff.
What kind of fish you put in the bowl?
Various. I'll just show you some of the. Why don't we go ahead and do that now? This is a bowl. Now in the wood, I don't have no idea what this wood is. This is one of Wes Jones's scraps that came off the corner, a piece that he cut off of one of his bowls. So I have no idea what kind of wood it is, but this is Mahoney's walnut oil. Now I've got about 5 or 6 coats on there, and next week we'll try buffing it. Walnut oil takes a lot longer to dry, and we'll try buffing it next week and see if it'll put a little bit of a sheen on it. But that's walnut oil.
That food safe?
Yes, walnut oil is food safe. In fact, you can go to Kroger and buy a can of walnut oil on all the grocery shelf. This one is one of Richard Raffin's finishes. Richard Raffin uses beeswax. Well, to help get the beeswax distributed, he puts walnut oil on a rag. Well, I used a paper towel, so I had the lathe running. I took a stick of beeswax in there and pressed it in, and then I used a rag to distribute it. So that's just walnut oil and beeswax on that one. This one is Jack's finish of. It was a real piece of real punky wood. So I used the Deft lacquer, spray lacquer sanding sealer. When I was still doing the finishing cuts, I'd spray, because I was really having a lot of trouble getting tear out inside here on the end grain, so I would spray lacquer, the sanding sealer in there, and then let that dry, and I'd make another cut, and I'd spray some more on. So I went through several coats of sanding sealer trying to get the wood sealed so I could get a nice finished cut on it. And then once I did that, then again I put more sanding sealer on it and sanded it, and then I sprayed it with the clear Krylon and put probably 5 or 6 coats of that on, and then went over with steel wool and then buffed it. So that's that finish. This is another. This is I think all 3 of these I think are the Danish Watco Danish oil. This one is, again, another one. I've got about 6 or 8 coats of Danish oil on there, and next week we'll try buffing that and see if it'll come up with something like this. But that's what's on here, just the Danish oil, and then I let it dry for about 3 weeks or so, and then buffed it. So those. So you can get a nice shine on the Danish oil if you get enough layers built up on it. And it's a really easy finish to put on. This finish here, you spend a lot of time sand. You spray it and you get little dust bubbles. You go over steel wool and you sand it and you buff it and you just keep going over until you get it right. So it really takes a lot of time, I think, to put that spray finish on. And if you want to see any of those, I can pass those around. If any of those you particularly want to see, I'll pass them around. Okay. Okay, so start off with a log. You're going to be able to see if I lay it down here. And the thing I come up with, I think I got that Lyle Jameson. He was inside of a shop with an electric chainsaw, and he's using his workmate. Now I had a log out there. I'd watched Mark Chalet do it, and I laid a log out there, and I was trying to hold the log on top of on top of another log and cut it, and it wasn't holding still. Well, Lyle Jameson had his workmate set up in there, and he had the jaws open and had it set up on the workmate. Well, another thing struck me. I got one of those the strap clamps like you use for tying cargo down the back of your pickup. So I just laid that log on my workmate out in the backyard, brought the strap clamp up around like that, and really had a nice secure hold on the log. Just let it hang over the edge of the workmate like that, and cut it off with the chainsaw. And where I start out with it like this had been laying at least a year in my, close to a year. So there was cracks on the end. So I cut off about a 2-inch slice, and then I looked at the piece that I cut off, and there were still cracks on it. So I cut another 2-inch slice off and looked at that, and finally got down to there wasn't any cracks that I could see. So then I came back and I took just the thinnest slice I could, and I tried breaking it. If it'll still break, there's still a crack in there. So then you take another slice. So you keep doing that until you get to good solid wood where you can't break it by hand, a thin slice. So then once I get a good surface here, then I take the basic diameter of that and come down and mark it, slide it out, and cut it off again. Now I try getting those cuts as square as I can, so it makes it easier to clean up. So are we going to hold it this way, or is it better to hold it up here like this? Okay.
You mentioned the basic diameter, and then you moved to the linear side of that.
Say again?
You mentioned, I looked at the basic diameter, and then you went across to...
Yeah, that's going to be, since my bowl is going to be in there like that, it's going to need to come down at least that far, a little bit farther for the length, so I get a round blank out of it. So a tree, when a tree trunk is, when it's growing, if there aren't any stresses on the tree, if it's just going straight up in the air, it's all going to be compression wood. The weight of the tree is going to be compressing down on the wood, and the pith is going to be in the center, and it's going to be fairly round. Well, once you get out on a limb, the limb is growing out, so you got the weight of the limb, so you get this reaction wood in the northern hemisphere. Now it's opposite in the southern hemisphere. The reaction wood grows on the top of the limb. You have the tension side. You got the limb out here on the top of the pith. It's bearing down, so it's under tension. That part of the tree up there above the pith, on the bottom of the pith is under compression. So if you look at the pith here is off centered. Now this could have been a trunk here because looks like a sprout out here, but I just wanted to show you that the pith is not in the center of the circular part of it. So we have reactionary wood up here on the tension side, and normal wood down here on the compression side. So the pith, that causes two things. It's going to be the wood that's on the reactionary wood is going to dry, or as it dries, it's going to shrink. The shrinkage rate on this wood is going to be greater than the shrinkage rate down here. So you want to balance that. If you have a mixture of, if you make the bowl across like this and have a mixture of regular wood and reactionary wood, it's going to shrink at a different amount, and when your bowl blank is not going to go into a nice oval form, it might go into a D shape or something, and it might be much harder to get into round after it's dried. And then another thing, you want to try to balance out the pith. When you draw your line across there, the cut line, you want to pick an area where the pith is fairly much equal distance from the two bark surfaces. So here this has got a little bit of a lump out there, but it looks like that is about, I want to pick a place where that pith is in the center, and we'll say that's about right there. Now what that does, another thing what that does is when I go to make my bowl out of here now, I've got a fairly circular growth rings around there, and when I make a bowl, I try to get the grain in the bottom of the bowl balanced to give you the pattern. See in the bottom of the bowl there, it's a little bit of an X pattern. If you get that balanced out real well, you'll have a nice X, and it'll be balanced. The grain will all be balanced around there. Now this one I didn't get it quite balanced. You see, they got the circle down here. Well, up here it's clear up here on the ring up here, so I could have did a better job of getting that balanced. Where this one here, this one I got balanced very well. I got, the pith is about the same on both sides, and it's got that X pattern really comes pretty close to the center. It's kind of hard to see with the spalting going on there, but I'll go ahead and pass this around. But you can see how the grain pattern gives you a nice even balance, and I just like the way that looks. So that's the reason another reason besides having the even shrinkage rate around both sides of the bowl, it also gives me the capability to balance it to get that kind of a grain pattern in the bottom of the bowl. So I've chosen on this end now is where I want that to be cut at. So I want to transfer that line to here. So now how do I draw a line here that's going to be exactly in the same plane as that line? So I want to make a mark out here, so I'll just take a little bit of bark off so I can put a mark on there. Okay, and then we'll do the same thing over here. Okay, now if you got 3 hands, this works out a lot easier. But I don't. So what we'll do is it'll help out on here. So here I'll show it here. That should be able to hold like that. So I'm going to orient the log so that is vertical there, and then come down on the other end and draw a line over here through the pith. So now theoretically those 2 lines should be in the same plane. So then we'll do the same thing over on this end, get our mark over there. Okay, so now I can cut that, I can tell where those lines are, and I can line up those lines. Or my goal is I want to cut this log in half so that my cut line goes right down through the pith. So we'll move over to the bandsaw, and I'm going to set it on the bandsaw. Now look at the lines and see how and this is one of the benefits of trying to get that cut as square as you can from the beginning. But I've got the line down here, lined up the blade down here, and that line up there is a little bit off. So I'll just tilt the table until both of those lines line up with the bandsaw blade. And then now I can come through here and I can just slide that through, and my cut should be right through the pith in here then on the other side. So then once I have that cut in 2, so I've got my piece cut in 2, and now I want to establish a square bit here so I can stand it on the edge and give me a clean cut here. So I'm going to take the miter gauge, crank the blade down so you got your desired clearance there. Take the miter gauge and run it through the bandsaw there. So now I've got a surface here that's perpendicular to this surface here. So then I can take the fence over here, set it like this, and run it through like that, taking off another slice off of there to give me some nice, clean, clear piece of wood here. Now I've seen some people, instead of doing that stage, they'll just take a chisel and just chisel away the bark. Well, first off, you don't want to put the point into that bark, because it's not going to give you a secure fit on the wood. So when you put that point in there, you want to be going into solid wood. So this gives me and I've seen people go with a chisel. Well, you may, in order to get that with the grain balanced like that, you may have to move that around a little bit. So with a good clean surface here and a clean surface here, then I can tweak it to get the grain balanced. And the way I do that,
Forster bit help with that?
for what? Well, yeah, you could drill a Forster hole in there, but then what happens if you want to move that? When you get it over here, and we're going to show you later, you can't move it. You don't have any options of being able to move it and adjust it to tweak it. So this is, I've got a nice surface here, that I can move, I can play with the points on. So looks like I left my my ruler at home, so we'll use this. So I've got the I look at see where the pith is here. I got the pith mark there, and I got the pith mark here. And I come along and I draw a line there. Okay, then I lay it down like this and draw a vertical line. I want to transfer it. I've got that line through the pith there. I want to put a line correspondingly right above the pith up here. So I'm going to put, might be easier to see if I do it that way. So I use my square, draw a line there, draw a line there, and then connect those two lines together. Okay, so that line should be, if I've got a nice uniform surface there, this should be directly above the pith down there. So now I can take that with my circle gauge. Oh, that's the way to do that for do the circle. Getting a little bit ahead of myself. So I make circle templates out of masonite. I got like 6 inches, 7 inches, and 8 inches, just to make the size of bowls that you commonly use. So I'm just going to lay this on there with the center hole over top of that line. Actually, I want to do it on this side. I'm sorry. Do it on this side. And then I'll just tack that down. And I'll take that back over to the bandsaw and cut out around there. And I don't want to get right next to my circular disc here and nick it up. So I'm just going to stay a bit away from it. I've got the clearance over here. I can try to make a uniform distance, maybe about 1/4 inch away. Well, start cutting it, and I don't want to start with my fingers over here and line that bandsaw blade. I start over hold like this, work my way around, and keep moving my hand so it's not out here in front of it. And just work your way around and round it out. Now, I've seen some people put it on the lathe and make it round on the lathe. I think it's a lot quicker to go to the bandsaw and make it somewhat round on the bandsaw. So then we have something like this after we take it off the bandsaw. And it's been round. So I've got the circular point where I had the circular point here. I've got the center marked here. So then I'm just going to come around here and just sort of balance it out there and make another mark there. So I got two starting center points in. So then we'll put that on the lathe and see how our balance is. Now this is going to be the top of the bowl. And this is the surface I want to get the cleanest over here. So I'm going to mount it with this surface against the tailstock. And I'm just going. In fact, let me take that off. This is a one-way live center that comes with these different shapes on them. There's other live centers that have the same sort of thing. We're just going to put that in there just very lightly, just enough to hold it in place. Just sort of spin like that. And first I want to look at, see if it's way out of balance and one side completely falls down. I can adjust both sides, those lines along this axis here, because I've got that axis lined up my pith. I can move it back and forth on there until I get it so it's not way out of balance. And my pith lines, you can I saw one of the videos I was watching he used a laser pointer. He just held a laser pointer out here. I didn't want to be shining the laser pointer out there in somebody's eyes. So just hold your finger there, lined up with this side, then bring it around over here. Maybe easier to hold like this, and just to make that should be balanced. If I got everything out, and you can see there, that's pretty well balanced there. So that's balanced on this axis here. Now this axis here might not be the same. May not have this line up here the same to give me a good balance here. We need to slide it up farther.
Get it there.
You can slide it up farther. So it's kind of hard to tell. It looks like it's fairly balanced. You can see the bark is coming down here on the edge, so we can't really tell much more than that. I'll show you later on. We can tweak that later if we need it, but that's going to be a good starting point right there. So we'll take it back off. Did we put that in there? Oh, here it is. So I'm just going to take my drive center. Now, I could use this spur point here. I think this, in wet wood, this kind of a point gives you a better hold. And some people have actually said you grind off two of the points to give you 2 points. That allows you to hammer it into the wood a lot deeper. But if you're hammering it in with a grain, you could cause a little bit of a fissure there and a crack in it. So I don't use that if unless I really have to. So this is what's called a stub center. It's got points on it, and the reason I use this one on here, this one's the point on this one's spring loaded. So I wanted, and this one's got a firm point. So when I did that initial balancing, I wanted that point to stay there and solid, and I didn't want to have it push in and rub against the teeth here. So we're just going to use this drive center, just give it a few whacks. Dead blow hammer. You never want to strike that with a metal hammer.
One of the main problems with that 4-point spur, if it slips, it will guarantee it will go off center, where the stub center will stay on center even if it slips and you can just tighten it up. But that 4-point, guarantee it, if you get a catch or something that slips, it's going to go off center every time.
You're going to be able to see there, is that?
Which side are you putting it in?
I'm going to put the tenon on this side. First off, I'm going to get this all cleaned up, and I'm going to get this cleaned up. I'm going to drill a hole in here for my screw chuck, and then I'm going to mount the screw chuck, and the tenon will go over here. Now I have seen people do all that in between centers. You'd have it mounted around this way and clean it up, make the tenon here. But I just liked having the access of having it on a screw chuck. We have access to the whole bottom then to put the tenon on. Or if you want to do a recess, it'd really be hard to put a recess with the tailstock in the way like this. So get on there so it'll spin correctly.
Before you get started there, should you be wearing that tie around your neck?
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. Yes, that's a good point. Let me put this on the low range. Yeah, but before you turn anything on the lathe, you want to tie up. You need to get that off of there. Tie up your loose hair. Take off all your jewelry.
Wait a minute.
Do I need to take the headset off?
Yeah, pull it out of your pocket.
Take off all your jewelry. Oh, that came loose there now. Oh, yeah.
There you go.
No.
And I don't like having loose sleeves on my, I don't want anything in there that's going to grab a hold of it and drag me into it. So all the loose stuff, nothing's going to catch on there now. Okay, so safety equipment, while we're speaking of safety equipment, this is my, when I'm doing anything at home, this is my attire. But you can't hear me talk with this on today, so that was another reason why I don't want my wood, hopefully it's not going to make too much dust. Oh, before we get in, there's something else. Before we start cutting wood, I wanted to tell you some other stuff. See, I got it mounted on the lathe. Centers. Yep, okay. Cutting wood on the lathe is not rocket science. You know, when you were young, did your grandfather ever let you use his pocket knife? No. Did your grandfather ever let you use his pocket knife to do some whittling? Did he? When you're whittling, did you hold the knife like this? Or did you hold the knife like, besides cutting my finger, would I be able to cut very well like that? No. So you want to cut with the grain, looking at the grain on the, this is a, can't really, it's not a good example I wanted to show you on there, but anyway, when you're cutting, you're going to be going with the grain, meaning that you're not coming up underneath the fibers, tearing fibers off. See how when you try cutting that way, it's just going to get underneath the fiber and just break it off. So did you get a better cut when you was going like this, or when you was holding the knife at an angle and giving it a shear cut? You probably found that you got a nice cleaner cut if you held the knife at an angle, about a 45-degree angle, and made a shear cut. Same way when you're using a hand plane. When you're using a hand plane, you can take the plane there and just run it straight down the board, or you can hold the plane at an angle and come across and give a shearing cut, and you get a much smoother cut. Takes a lot less energy to push to give you that cut across there. So it's the same thing with a lathe. You take shearing cuts, you present the cutting edge at a 45-degree angle to the wood to give you a nice, and you'll get the cleanest cut and the easiest cut. And with a wood chisel, I put too much stuff in my drawer here. When you're using a wood chisel, do you use the wood chisel like this, or do you use the wood chisel like this, where you have the bevel in there helping you control the depth of the cut? Usually there are times when you use the wood chisel like that, but usually when you're using the wood chisel, you put it the bevel side down and let the bevel help you control the cut. It's the same thing on a lathe tool. You have the bevel help control the cut. And another thing about when you're on the cutting, if you did you cut with it down like this in line, or did you cut it like this? You find you could scrape it like that, but you get a much cleaner cut when you cut it like that. So it's again the same thing with that. With a lathe, you get a much cleaner cut when you're cutting the wood instead of scraping the wood. However, there are times when you do need to scrape the wood, and you can, if you have a burr on the tool, you can get a pretty clean cut with the scraping method, but it's much better to cut the wood instead of scraping it. And you talk about cutting downhill. When you have a bowl, that was cut out of this log that has rings going around like this. So those rings are going around, that bowl is mounted on the other way around. Let's see. Yeah. He's telling the grain there. Well, the grain is, you're going to have areas of the bowl, maybe better do that. Well, let's say you're going to have areas of the grain where here on the bowl, the grain is going across this way. So up here, you've got grain going, grain going across the surface here, but over here the grain is going here. You're coming into the pith. So if we line the bowl like that, we've got the grain. The grain is running through there like that. And we want to be cutting downhill or with the grain. If we, on the outside of the bowl, if we were to cut in this direction, we would be, the point of the tool would be trying to get underneath those fibers and rip the fibers out, and you wouldn't get a very clean cut. So when you're outside of the bowl, downhill, you're cutting this way. So when you cut the fibers, the next fiber underneath of it sticks out a little bit farther. It's going to support it, and you're going to get a much cleaner cut cutting downhill on the outside of the bowl from the base of the bowl to the rim of the bowl, On the inside, it's just opposite. If you came in from the rim and tried to cut out this way, you'd be tearing those fibers. So on the inside of the bowl, you want to cut this way and downhill, or with the grain. Okay, so now we're ready to make some sawdust, or some shavings, not sawdust. Oh, well, yes, one other thing. There's when we talk about the tools, when you're woodworking tools, you're pretty much doing stuff flat. Well, there aren't any flat surfaces on here, so in order to present the tool bevel writing and a shear cut, you need different shaped tools to get to different areas. So there's all different shapes of tools. Here's a couple examples here that we have a swept back grind bowl gouge, and we have more of a standard grind with the wings not swept back so much, and this has got a much more acute angle on the point. And then we got one that's got a very sharp, with a very acute bevel for getting to different areas in the wood. And it knows, talking about bowl gouges, you hear people talk about bowl gouges and spindle gouges. Well, as Jimmy Clue says, that tool doesn't know that it's a bowl gouge or a spindle gouge. And the difference, Richard Raffin refers to them as shallow fluted gouges and deep fluted gouges. Well, with a spindle gouge, you got your tool steel. With a spindle gouge, and when the spindle gouge is pretty much it's cut off at the top, but the spindle gouge, the flute is less than a circle, less than half of a circle. Whereas the bowl gouge, the flute on the bowl gouge comes down much deeper, deep fluted gouge, and it's more than half a circle. So that's the difference. You refer to them as shallow fluted gouges and deep fluted gouges. So this is typically referred to as a spindle gouge. This is typically referred to as a bowl gouge. Okay, so I'm going to use can I hear me okay with this down? Okay, so first thing I want to do is I want to get this surface out here completely round, so I can true up this face here. When you turn the lathe on, you turn the speed all the way down, and then crank it up. Now the speed, the recommended speed is, the formula is diameter times RPM should be in the 6,000 to 9,000 range. So with a bowl, 6-inch diameter bowl, that 6,000 to 9,000 be 1,000 to 1,500 RPM. But you want to turn it as fast as you can to get a cleaner cut. When you're first starting out like this, you'll turn it up until the lathe starts vibrating. But so there's 450 RPM. And the lathe is starting to shake there. So that's 700, 800 RPM. So I'm going to have a little bit of interrupted cut on this one. I'm starting over here. I'm going to be cutting some air, so it's going to be a bit of an interrupted cut. But I'm going to start out. I can see the shadow there that's very close to the thing. So I'm just going to come in get it started with the flute completely closed. And then once I start getting a bevel, then I can rotate it up a little bit. Oh, that reminds you of something I didn't do that I was going to tell you to do. It's best to remove all that bark off of there. Huh? Yeah. So I want to remove all that loose bark off of there so it doesn't go flying out like that piece just did.
Whoop, Georgia.
Yeah. Okay. So now I shouldn't have any loose stuff flying off of there. Again, you want to get the tool rest as close as you can, and a good starting point is about the height of the spindle, but it's all going to be controlled on how you want to hold the tool. If you want to hold the tool up like this, you can raise it higher. If you want to hold it down like this, but you want your cutting edge to be at or just slightly below the center of rotation. Okay, you can turn the speed down and then turn it up. Okay, there's 800. We'll give it a little bit more balance there. Now, as Jack said, if that had been that 4-point center and it started slipping like that, it would probably went off center. So I'm coming in, getting it started. I'm pointing the flute in the direction that I want to cut, and then once I get a little bit of bevel riding, then I open it up a little bit, up to about 45 degrees, but I'm riding the bevel right here on the tip of the tool. Okay, so still got a little bit, it's not quite round right there, still got a little bit there, but it's okay here. Now at this point, if there was a bigger difference in this difference here, now I'm going to have to take this side down until I get down here. Well, if I didn't want to waste that much wood away, George, I could, at this point, I could stop it and I could move both sides over. There's about half of that distance is about 1/8 of an inch there. I could move it over about 1/16 of an inch, and that would go this way about 1/16 of an inch, and that would give it more centered and give me better usage of the wood. But it might throw off my pattern up here if I get off this pith up here. My pith's not going to be right in the center, and I'm not going to have that nice X shape in the bottom of the bowl. So we'll take a little bit more off here and see how it looks. Going to move the tool rest a little bit closer now. Okay, so I've got round there, and I've still got a little bit of bark there. So let's take a little bit more off. My lathe, the power switch is up here. And when I'm making the cut, once I get the cut established, I'm watching up here to see how, trying to get that as straight across there as I can get it. There it goes again. Okay, so now I've got a nice clean round surface here. Now, if there was if I can see a ring, an obvious ring pattern up here that I can identify over on this side of here, I can do the same thing here. I can hold my finger on that ring there, or you could do even with a pencil, it's better. So I've got a growth ring. What goes that one right there? Should match up with this one over here. That ring looks like about right there, and that one comes over about right here. So we'll come over on this side, and we'll just make a mark. So we can see here, I got that ring there is over here, so it's a little bit off over here. So now if I wanted to adjust that, I could move. I don't have to move up here. I could just take the tailstock and move the tailstock on. Oh wait, no, I don't want to do it at that point. No, I'm sorry. It's this that would change my my angle. It's this side, this bit here where it's rounding over. Sorry. So if we mark it here, yeah, that's getting no. If you see over here, I've got where the tree is rounding down. The line is there. Over here, it's a little bit low. So if I wanted to balance that out, I need to cock the log that way to get more cut down there. So I could loosen this up and just move my center over that direction slightly. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing. We'll mark it here. I must have went the wrong direction. Yeah, I did.
That was for demonstration.
Yeah, that was showing you what not what to go. So you moving. Okay, and it's still off a little bit, but I just wanted to show you that once you get it that way, if you want to get that more, that's how you balance it. Now, if you, I didn't move the point here, but if I needed to get it balanced or something for where I need to move the spur side, where I had that Forstner drilled in there, or just chiseled out a bit of wood, I wouldn't have had the access to a nice smooth surface here to be able to move it around. And next thing you need to know is you need to look for defects in the wood. So we got a bit of a defect there in that wood, so I probably wouldn't do any more turning on that, but I got it down to, I'll go ahead and take it to the step that I wanted to, for the next step that I wanted to show you. Won't do any more on this surface here, but I've got a good round surface there. Now I want to make a flat surface over here. And to do that, I'm going to use this other gouge. This, if you see this one here, the angle, the bevel is sort of curved up. I don't remember the angle, but this from here, the angle across there and here should be less than 90 degrees. Well, this is a bit more than 90 degrees. So to come in and do the cut I want to do here, I would have to be writing, the bevel would be, or it's not the bevel, I'm going to come in on this lower cutting edge here, and I would have to go in a ways before I could get on the bevel. Where this one, the top of the flute is much straighter, and it is less than 90 degrees. So now when I come in with the point on this here, I'm going to be able to, the bevel's going to be rubbing almost immediately. As soon as I start cutting, I'm going to be able to get on the bevel with that tip like that. And you could come across this with bevel writing, but since that's not round, it'd really be tough to get in there and start it. So a cut like this, you can stand out of the way of line of fire and just come in with it fairly closed. and just push it straight in like that. And it goes edge back to you there. You can tell when you get down to the where it's no longer interrupted. You can tell when it starts running smooth. Like it need to be. And then once I get it, still a bit smooth out here. I still got a little bit of interrupted cut up there in the front. But now I'm just doing a sort of scraping cut just to get it cleaned up. I'm not really too concerned about that up there. I want it to be nice and flat out here to rest on the jaws of my chuck when I put it on the screw chuck. So that's a good surface there. So the object of doing this is I'm going to drill a hole in here for the screw chuck. Well, I've seen some people just hold the bowl up and drill it. Well, I can't drill a straight hole with a hand drill. That's the reason I have a drill press. So I want to be able to drill a hole in here, and I want to have the hole perpendicular to this surface. Well, to put it on the lathe, I can't register it on the lathe in this surface and drill a hole from the top. So I got to make this surface now parallel to this surface. So that's the reason I want to come back and clean this side up over here. And I really only need to do just that. I don't need to make the whole surface, just the outer ring part there. Now it's going to be hard to get you're not going to feel the nice smooth cut here because we've still got some interrupted cut there. But I just want to, I can tell when I've got the edge that I'm cutting there is not bouncing too much. And I only need to go in a ways. I don't need to go very far. Okay, so now I've got the outer part up here. The outer part up here should be parallel to this part down here. So now I can take that to the drill press and rest it out there on those outer edges like that. And now when I drill the hole, my hole is going to be perpendicular to this surface here. And the reason I want that perpendicular to that surface there is that when I put it on my screw chuck, I want this surface here to rest firmly against the jaws of my screw chuck. So, you want to see it? It's a piece of wood. So I didn't ask him to set up a drill press in here, so I just prepared another blank. Okay, so now I need to get that screwed onto there. Now, if I was to try to just take this and screw it on, chances are I wouldn't get it perfectly straight. So I'm going to use the tailstock to help me keep it lined up. And let's see. Need to be able to lock the spindle. And this doesn't have a spindle lock that you have to sit there and hold it. And again, I don't have three hands. So we'll do this. No, I'll show you how this is the way I do it at home. There's my spindle lock. And let's get that more out of the way. Okay, I'm just going to apply pressure with the tailstock and screw it in. Now the size hole, this is a one-way chuck with a one-way worm screw. They recommend drilling a 9mm or no 11/32 hole, which is slightly less than 9mm. Well, I found that's too small, and you can see here the effort. I'm using a 10mm hole, and you can see here it's still taking quite a bit of effort to get that screwed on. So, depending on the wood that you're using, you could probably make the hole just slightly larger, but to go slightly larger, the next US size is 7/16, which would probably be too large. But if that gets too hard doing it that way, got a Craftsman strap wrench. Don't ask me how much this cost, because I probably had this laying around for 25 years and I finally found something to use it for. It was on sale when I got it, though. That's my justification. My wife said, well, it's on sale.
That's what she said.
Yeah.
That must have been before the euro.
Okay, so should go around there. Now, if I have my hole was perpendicular, I should have a nice, no gaps around there on that jaw, and I do have a nice firm fit down around there. Okay, so I'm going to leave the tailstock up. You always want to leave the tailstock up as long as you can. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start knocking some of this off so I can turn the speed up and run it a little bit faster. And again, I'm going to use the bowl gouge, swept-back bowl gouge. It's got the flatter flute with a less than 90 degrees between the flute and the bevel. Probably help if I got the tool rust on there, wouldn't it? Let's see, we'll put it at a bit of an angle. Okay, I'm going to use this cut like this. Some people call it a pull cut, some people call it a push cut, but regardless of what you call it, you can take a lot of wood off very quickly with it. Okay, so now I'm down to that point. I've got a real secure fit here. I can go ahead and take this tailstock out of the way. And then just go ahead and start shaping the bowl. Looks like there's got a little bit of a defect there also. So you got to be careful. You put some super glue in that. You put some super glue down in that crack now, but we'll as you start taking the inside out, if it starts acting funny, then we won't go any farther with it. Set the tool rest so that you can get to the center. And I'm just going to start giving my rough shape of the bowl. I like bowls that have a round bottom, because sometimes when I'm doing this on a piece of green wood, I get carried away and I just can't stop, and I just keep on going. And I figure, if the bowl it's got a round bottom and wobbles when it's wet, it's not going to wobble anymore when it shrinks and dries out. It's still going to wobble the same as what it did before. So I like the round bottom bowls myself.
What about the tenon?
That'll be coming.
Okay.
I'm just getting the basic shape right now. Okay, so now, and again, on my next session, I'll show you how I chuck it. And I like to expand in there like that to hold it, to reverse chuck it. So consequently, I like to round the top over a little bit to give me a gripping edge in there on the inside. So I'm going to come over here now. I'm going to, again, downhill and uphill. I'm going to, if I continue going here, I'd be going downhill. So I need to come in this way and start developing that from this way. I'm going downhill here now. And again, I'm watching the profile develop up there. Okay, that's got a little bit of lump there. Okay. So now you ask about the tenon. I could go ahead and take that off, but I'm going to need a registration point for the center. When I rechuck it to after it's dried and warped, I'm going to need a registration point. So I'll just leave that point there in the center for now. The bottom doesn't have to be completely round. I'll set it right at the height of the thing, and I've got. Well, I had them. Pair of dividers. I guess I'd already got them out. Huh? Okay, I've got this set to these are number 2 jaws are about 2 inches, so I've got it set to about the size that I want to make that tenon with my dividers. I'm going to come in and I'm going to make a mark, and I'm going to be very careful at this point out here. I don't want that point to touch the wood. And I'm going to just test it. If I get it in the center, then the lines that I draw should line up with this point over here. Right there. Okay, that line's lined up there right now. So that's the diameter of my tenon. So I'm going to use a parting tool to cut the rough edge of the tenon to get the tenon started. And I want to have it set so that the point is right there in the center. We'll go up to, that's 1200. Anybody feel comfortable with that? So we only need to go down about 3/16 of an inch. Now, Mike Mahoney recommends that the diameter of the tenon should be 40% of the diameter of the bowl. Well, this is a 6-inch bowl, so 40% of that is, what, 3 inches? About 3 inches? 2.5? Well, I'm making a 2-inch tenon. Well, I've seen, in videos, Richard Raffin and Jimmy Clues make tenons much smaller than that. And the size of the bowl, like as long as I've got, when you're turning it, if you got a good firm hold, you're not getting any vibration. That's the size of tenon that I've been using. Maybe we'll go just a little bit deeper on that. Okay. So now we'll just further refine the shape of the bowl. I go a lot by feel. I like for the bowl to feel good when you're holding it in your hand. So just feel around there. I've got a little bit of I'll probably take a little bit more off of there. It's got a little bit, it sort of comes down, it's got a little razor, so let's just round that out a little bit more there. I'm really scraping here now, but I'm still getting a nice cut off. It's not getting shavings or sawdust. Okay, I like the feel of that. Okay, now to come up and dress my tenon, I want to have a nice smooth tenon there, and I want to have the critical part is the resting up here. I want the jaws of the surface of the jaws up here need to be firmly registered against the base of the bowl. So I'm going to use my negative rake scraper, or skew as some people call it, and set that at the proper height. And I'm going to look at my skew and line it up to bedways, because I want to start out with this tenon going straight in. And then come over and dress up the bottom. Okay. Now these jaws, these are not two dovetail jaws. The inner surface of those jaws are shaped like that, where it's basically flat, but it's just got a little bit of a point on the very tip there. So I'm just going to go in just slightly and just make a little bit of a recess right up against the right up here. Just I'm not going to go the full distance for a dovetail. I'm just going to go the very last little bit there and just make a slight amount of recess there. Huh? No, these are the Nova. No, this is Novichok. The serrated one-way jaws are not dovetail at all. You'd make completely straight in with the one. If I was using the jaws on, where'd it go? Huh? Oh, it's still here. The jaws on this is not dovetailed at all. They've got just have teeth on them, and you'd make your tenon completely straight for that. But this is the jaw I'm going to use here, and this is just got a slight bit of just a slight dovetail in the last 16th or 32nd of an, or 3/16ths of an inch. Well, that's what I'm going to use for that. Okay, so we got the outside roughed and ready to take it off and turn it around. Nope.
I had a couple of those pretty good price in Harbor Freight.
Oh, well, these are Craftsman. They're better.
There aren't any Sears stores anywhere. I don't even know what the nearest store is at.
Well, I bought these back when Sears was the only place around. We didn't have all the. Yeah. I probably had that for 30 years. Like I said, we used to get the Sunday paper. The first thing I go for in the Sunday paper was a Sears flyer, and so I know what kind of tools they had on sale. And I go run down to Sears and buy stuff that was on sale. So I probably had those at least 30 years. Okay, now this might be a trick here, because I didn't bring my wrench to take that off with. I don't know if any of you saw my Christmas tree ornament demo, but I talked about these chucks that's got the Tommy bars. I've heard so many people really put down the Tommy bar chuck, saying, well, you need 3 hands. Well, let me show you how you need 3 hands to do this. 1 hand here, 1 hand here. Now, if I was doing that with a chuck key, I'd be sitting there going like this with a chuck key, trying to get it down like that. So once I get it like that, put this in here to just give it a little bit of pressure to make sure it's seated down in there. The holes.
Do you make any decision now how you orient that in regard to a numbered jaw or anything on your chuck?
Well, that was when I cut the tenon, right? I cut the tenon to match the jaws that I had on my chuck. Is that what you're asking?
I'm just curious whether or not, when you decide to rechuck it later, if you orient, say, the number one jaw at any particular spot on the...
It's going to be oval. So it's not, if you're going to take it off and put it back on right away before it changes, I always make a mark between number 1 and 4. So if I want to put it back on, I can put it back in the same spot. But once it dries, it's going to go oval and it's not going to be round anyway, so you're going to have to retrue it. Okay, there's the holes around here are cut at different positions, so you can always go around there. Now this is the thing, I had the Talon chuck. You use a chuck key and you turn it one way to close it and one way to open it. Well, then I got a Nova G3 chuck. Well, you turn it just opposite. This one's made in Canada, north of the equator. This was made in Australia, south of the equator, so you got to turn it different directions. So the only thing you have to remember on this one is that this is the ring here that adjusts it. You take it that way to close the jaws up, and you pull it this way to open the jaws up. So there's always going to be a set of holes on here that's going to be positioned so I can put it. Now watch, I'm going to use 3 hands here. There. I saw a video, Richard Raffin and Cindy Drosia both using chucks like this, and they didn't seem to be having any problem at all with that. And I said, well, if they can do it, I can too. This chuck is much cheaper than that chuck. In fact, you know, Craft Supply has had these chucks on sale for $89. The Nova chuck. Okay, so now we need to come here and start hollowing it out. Well, how deep do we want to go? I want to, when you rough hollow it, you want to take whatever the dimension, whatever the diameter of the bowl is. So the diameter of this is about 5 1/4 inches. You want to leave a wall thickness about 10% of that. So I got a ruler at home that I had in my toolbox until I used it the other day and didn't put it back in here, but it's marked in tenths. So you put it on the tenth scale, about 5 inches, you come 5/10. It's that difficult to decide what it is. So that's going to be just slightly less, just slightly more than 1/2 inch is what I need to make that, leave that wall thickness. So we'll leave our wall thickness that thick. And then as far, so now I want to make it a depth. I want to set my depth here. So I want to just eye down here to where I've got about 1/2 inch left in the bottom for my I want to have an even thickness all the way around. And the reason you want to do that is it'll give you much more even drying, where one area is not going to dry out sooner than another area. So I want to leave my bottom about the same depth, the thickness is what my sides are going to be. So I need to make a hole in there that much deeper. So I got my little drill. I got it at Home Depot. I think I think it's called a jobber drill. It was the longer drill. So I want to set my depth to that depth right there. So that just gives me a guide when I start hollowing out the inside. When I get to the bottom of that hole, that tells me how deep I want to go. Okay, so first, bring it that way. That should be far enough. Get this up here. We can do that. That live center is a nice place to put a ding in your elbow. I've never done it personally, but I've heard people do it. Okay, we got it pretty balanced now, so we'll go up to about, that's 1200, that's fast enough, I think. Is that light okay for you, Bob? Okay, so now some people say you should start in the center and work your way out. Jimmy Clues always starts out here and works his way down, but when he's doing that, oftentimes he's doing a finished bowl. His theory is you don't want to remove the stuff in the center until you get your wall thickness down. You start your wall thickness down and then you take wood out of the center, because he says it's like an elastic band. If you remove all that wood in the center, you're going to go around out here and it's not going to be around anymore to turn it. So, but in a roughing condition, we're going to leave our walls thick anyway, so I'm going to start in the center. I want to try to get down in the center, down to the bottom of that hole, and then when I start coming out of the edge, that'll give me something to aim for, where I can see the bottom of that hole, or where the bottom is at. So again, I'm going to get it started like this with the flute closed. Richard Raffin says it should take about 4 strokes to get that cleaned out. It takes me a bit more than that. Okay, yeah, well, when I get this bowl, if the bowl is fairly deep compared to the diameter, what you might find is that when you get down there in the bottom, you can't rub the bevel, because the bevel is too acute to be able to rub the bevel. Your tool is out here and you can't get the bevel rubbing. You got rubbing here and the tip is in there and you're not rubbing the bevel. So when you get down in there, you might find that you have to use a different gouge, and that's the purpose of this one. And even if you don't have problems with riding the bevel, I found that you get a much cleaner cut, because when I'm coming in up here, I'm cutting side grain. I'm going against the side of the grain, cutting the fiber sideways. When I get down here in the bottom, I'm cutting the fibers going into the grain, just like you be up here going against the grain here. So I think it has to do with, because the way this is presented, it's doing more of a shear cut down in the bottom, and it gives you a much cleaner cut with a steeper bevel like that when you're going across the bottom. But if you're trying to get out here, you can't really, because these wings are real straight up. And remember, I told you you wanted the angle between the bevel and the wings to be less than 90 degrees. Well, that's way more than 90 degrees there. So I wouldn't be able to get the cut started out here because the wings are in the way. So I'm still going to use this one. I'm still able to ride the bevel with this one. So can you see there, I haven't got to the bottom of the hole yet. There's the bottom of the hole. Okay, so now that gives me something to shoot for when I come back up here and start taking the wood back out up here. Okay, so let's check our wall thickness. Okay, I can really tell not even that far. I'm got down there. It's like it's fairly thin down all the way at the bottom. But I've got a lot to do, so I don't want to take any more out down there. I need to take more out though, all the way around from here, and I need to get this undercut a little bit here to match my profile out here. I'm using my thumb as a fulcrum point to help control the point of that to get it started. Then once I get the bevel there, then I can okay, now in Lyle Jamieson's video, one thing he showed in there was that, okay, I've got that, I think that's about my widest point right there. Can you see that here? Get up here, you can see it up here. That's about my widest point there, so now without moving the caliper, if I keep it on the inside edge, I can see how much I've got to take off. I've got to take that much off down here to get this wall thickness the same as this wall thickness up here. So starting about right in this area here. I need to take some more off in that area right in there. So about right there. Okay, that's better. So you can see up here now. That's still my thickest spot, but now I'm down to about 1/16 of an inch. I need to take a little bit more off to get it. And around the bottom, it's I got clearance. So down there is probably about the same as up here. So I just need to take some more off of just in that area right in there, just a little bit. Probably one more cut. You know, the same famous saying, just one more cut, right?
One last cut.
That should be it. Yeah, it's still a little bit snug right in that area there, but I think we're just going to leave it like that. Okay, now I don't want to leave any sharp edges out here because when it starts drying, these sharp edges are going to dry out quicker than the rest of it, and it's likely to cause a crack there. So I just want to relieve those edges a little bit. And there I'm just going to use a spindle gouge or a shallow fluted gouge and just use a scraping cut. Now I haven't dressed up, well I don't really, but I haven't dressed the edge up here, but it's pretty smooth from the original cut, so I won't need to do any more there, but I just need to come in and just round over those edges. And I just got it on the flute fairly closed, and I'm just using a scraping cut to round that edge over. Okay, That's it for the turning, for getting it rough. So now I take it off. Again, want to watch me use 3 hands here now? No, I don't need to mark it because once it dries, it's going to go out around anyway. Oh, I did forget something though. Forgot to mark the center. Because when I put it back on, I'm going to mount it between centers. I need to make there. You can tell that you can get it pretty close. You can see there where the cut was in there. But what I do is I'll just come back in here with the and just give me a little bit of a dimple there in the center, just so I know exactly where the center's at. And just give it a little tap, just to mark the center. Okay, so next thing you want to do is, the way you tell whether it's dry yet or not is as it dries, it's going to lose weight and moisture content. So first I'm going to weigh it. I've got 13.7 ounces. And take the moisture reading. And do it in several places. There's 23, that's 17 there. There's 25, 27, 34, 30. So the highest was 34, so I'll put 34% and put the date. This is the 28th, right? And that's it. Now I'll monitor that. I'll put it in a paper bag, put it in a quiet spot, and if the wood is really wet and you put it in a paper bag, you might want to check it in a week because you might find it's got mold growing on it, and you don't want to have a mold factory. But you want to leave it in a paper bag, I would say probably for 2 weeks maybe. Then that'll get the initial drying going, and then after that, then you can just set it out on a shelf back in the shop somewhere where it doesn't have a lot of airflow around it. And then you just every once in a while you just weigh it and check the moisture content. And once it gets down into the low teens, 15, I don't think you can get air drying down much below 10%. But once it stops losing weight and moisture content, then it's as dry as it's going to get. Now some of these bowls that I did here, I'd show it was here's some what I did was. I'd rough turned this in January, and it was 22% and weighed 8.9 ounces. Well, in April, it was down to 7%, just sitting in my shop. Well, I measured it just a little bit ago, or about a couple weeks ago, and it was back up to 8%. And some of them was showing at 14%. Well, I started going to my shop, check my workbench and everything. Well, everything was 14%. So I guess a certain thing is just going to stabilize with the humidity in the environment. But once it stops losing weight and moisture content, it's not going to get any drier, and you might as well go ahead and finish turning it. And let me show you a couple of pieces here I didn't pass around first. If when you do the rough turning, I say you want to leave it at that. I'll give you an example of what happens when it dries. I don't know if you can see this. It's I don't know if you can tell it on the camera there, but it's got a bit of a cup in it there. No, that's what happens as it dries, and you also probably see the foot, that the foot is no longer round, it's oval. But you want to leave the wall thickness, you want to leave enough wall thickness so that when you come back and remount it, you can turn it and get it true. Well, on this one, I don't think I got too much warpage there that I'm not going to be able to true that and I might be able to make it much smaller, but I'm not going to be able, I'd run out of rim if I tried truing that up. This is a crotch piece, and again about the reaction wood and regular wood. Well, you can tell it didn't dry evenly around. It's got a high spot here and a low spot there, and it really curled up because it had all different kinds of wood around that crotch. And again, I didn't leave it thick enough on the rim here to be able to come back and true it up.
So after waiting a year, you might not be able to use it.
Well, yeah. Well, you just make it thicker. You have to leave the wood thick enough so that you can come back and get it trued.
It takes a year to learn that lesson.
Yeah.
Well, finish, turn it, and let it.
Yeah, and now another thing, for drying normally, it can take up to a year per inch of wood, inch thickness. So if you cut your bowl down to about an inch thickness, it could take a year for that to completely dry. But something I got from Frank Bowers is he puts his blanks in alcohol, isopropyl, not denatured alcohol, and it drastically cuts down the drying time. And for this example here, this one was soaked in alcohol. I was expecting to see bigger numbers in this, but this one wasn't in alcohol. This one wasn't alcohol. When I did this one back on July 14th, it weighed 18 ounces and was 35%. And this one came out of the same piece of wood. It weighed 23 ounces and was 36%. So the moisture content was very, very similar. But now after, 3 weeks, now on the 26th, this one has went from 18 ounces to 15.4 ounces. It's went from 35% to 18%. This one, which wasn't soaked in alcohol, has went from 36% to 20%. So it's not, I was expecting to see a bigger change in that, but you can see this one's down to 18% already. This one's still at 20%. So it is.
Turned at the same time.
Yeah, they're both turned the same day. So soaking in an alcohol, and then I got it at Target, just a cookie jar. It's about plastic or not resin or not. It's clear, whatever, cookie jar. And it's got the old style canning jar that's got the wire ring around with a little bail on it that you can put down. It's got a gasket on it. It's just right for my size bowls I do, and I'll just put it in there and soak it and let it soak overnight. And then put it in a bag. Well, I'll take it out of there, and I'll let it sit somewhere just to let the exterior alcohol evaporate. And then I'll put it in a paper bag and put it away and check it. And like I say, first time you put in the alcohol ones, you don't have the problem with the mold growing on them because I guess the mold doesn't like alcohol. But you want
alcohol just for a limited period of time.
Well, Frank Bauer says he soaks it for an hour per inch. And I forget about it. I just stick it in there and soak. I'll put it in one afternoon and I'll take it out the next morning or next day. And
Do you let them dry on a shelf or?
well, initially, when as soon as I take it out of the alcohol, I set it down some quiet place and just let the alcohol evaporate. And then once it does, I put it in a brown paper bag and put it back on the shelf somewhere. What the bag does, it gives it a controlled environment. Even if you put it in a quiet spot, there's still going to be the outer edges are going to dry quicker than the inner edges. So when you put it in that paper bag, it creates an environment in there, and it helps control the humidity and regulate the drying on it, and lets it dry more evenly.
Have you tried to let it mold, like blue cheese? Blue cheese, if they mold, they didn't think it was any good.
Does it taste pretty good that way?
Have you ever tried to let it mold and then see what happens?
Well, I don't want to be turning it with mold on it. I don't want to be breathing it, but I got my dust mask on, but I'd rather not have mold growing in my shop. So what I'll do...
Improve the appearance of a bowl.
Okay.
Spalting does. Mold just stains it and it just doesn't look good.
Okay, just
Makes it look muddy.
okay.
I guess that's it.
Very good.